Tom Swillardre and Leo Francis Becker were killed by Cuban militiamen on April 19, 1961. After surviving the crash of their B-26 bomber on a beach near Cuba's Bay of Pigs, Major Riley W. Schemberger and Wade C. Gray were killed on the same mission. Their B-26 bomber crashed into the ocean after being shot down by a Cuban Air Force T-33 fighter. In January 1961, with tensions rising between the new U.S. administration and Fidel Castro's 2-year-old, increasingly harsh authoritarian regime, the United States severed diplomatic relations with Cuba. Soon thereafter, the CIA asked Major General Ray Doster, then serving as commander of Alabama's Air National Guard, to head up a new effort to recruit pilots, maintenance people, and aircraft specialists with experience on the World War II-era B-26 medium-range bomber. Recruits apparently were told that they would be participating in a secret mission aimed at toppling the Castro regime. General Doster enthusiastically accepted the assignment. 4 of General Doster's early recruits were Peter Ray, Leo Becker, Riley Schemberger, and Wade Gray. Although the men were told virtually nothing about the specifics of these dangerous missions, they signed on as contract employees with the agency Directorate of Plans in February 1961. They were 4 of about 60 Alabama's guardsmen who volunteered for what was certain to be a highly risky endeavor. In Happy Valley, Nicaragua, where they trained Cuban exiles pilots and crew members to provide air cover for an invasion force. The exile forces' military operations against the Castro regime began in mid-April 1961 with aerial attacks on Cuban airfields. These initial sorties were followed by more such flights, all from Happy Valley, more than 700 miles away. The basic objective was to provide air cover and protection for the landing force, which was struggling to gain a beach foothold. Before long, the exiles' tiny air combat unit had suffered substantial losses, as had their ground units. The morale and effectiveness of the surviving ground and air forces had been shattered by fierce resistance by Castro's ground forces, and on the aerial front, some big fatigue among the badly overworked anti-Castro pilots and air crews. It soon became apparent to the field advisor that continuation of the air action was beyond the exiles' capabilities, and that the need for outside air support was critical. The success of the whole operation depended on gaining domination of the skies over Cuba, and this was not happening. Although President Kennedy decided not to provide U.S. military air cover for the landing force, CIA program managers authorized the Alabama Air National Guard pilots to fly missions when the Cubans were no longer able to do so. The pilots were actually aware of the dangers they would face. It was in this context, seeking to help the Cuban people achieve freedom, they embarked on the flights that cost them their lives. April 19, 1961, sometimes after midnight, the 4 pilots, Peter and his co-pilot Leo Becker, Riley Schemberger and his co-pilot Wade Gray, were flying their B-26 to the area known as Bahia de Cochinos, the Bay of Pigs, expecting to provide air support to the anti-Castro ground troops. At that point, the men on the beach were easy targets for Castro's pilots. The mission of the anti-Castro air effort was to penetrate the beachhead area, attack Castro forces and destroy whatever they could, especially trucks and tanks. Pete and Leo's aircraft was fired upon by at least one of the Cuban Air Force T-33 fighter aircraft. It may also have been hit by the extensive ground fire occurring in the area. Their B-26 went down in a ball of fire, crash landing on the beach. Tom Swillard, Peter Ray, and Leo Francis Becker survived the crash and fled from the heavily damaged aircraft, but shortly thereafter they were killed by Cuban militiamen on April 19, 1961. Major Riley W. Schemberger and Wade C. Gray were killed on the same mission. Their B-26 bomber crashed into the ocean after being shot down by a Cuban Air Force T-33 fighter. Riley and Wade's B-26 was also hit as it approached the target area. When last glimpsed by another American B-26 pilot, it was at 100 feet above the beach, headed for the water at about 300 miles per hour. The plane hit the area at a shallow angle. There were no survivors. United States President John F. Kennedy later acknowledged America's involvement but denied that American military personnel had entered Cuban territory. The invasion collapsed that afternoon, and the resistance fighters, having exhausted their supplies and ammunition, surrendered to Castro's army. It had taken Castro forces just 72 hours to defeat the invasion. Castro held the prisoner until December 1963, when he ransomed them to the United States for food and medicines worth $53 million. Peter's body was placed in a morgue, where it remained for 17 years as evidence that the US military had invaded Cuba. Leo Becker was dark-skinned. appeared to be Cuban and was buried with the other dead Cuban invaders. After it was over, the surviving Albanians were quickly and quietly brought back and told to forget the whole affair. Not until 1987 did the US reveal that 8 Albanian National Guard members had indeed flown into the Cuban airspace. The role of the 60 Alabama Air National Guard members in the doomed effort to overthrow Castro is now a matter of public record. All 4 men were posthumously awarded the agency's highest honor for bravery, the Distinguished Intelligence Cross, and they received 4 of the original 31 stars on the CIA Memorial Wall when it was created in 1974.